Hello and happy Thanksgiving. I'm Emily Walker with the U.S.Embassy Algiers, and this is Let's Chat, a show on American culture hosted by the American Cultural Center Algiers, or the ACCA. So the ACCA is still closed to the public because of COVID, but there are 4 other American cultural centers located in universities in Oran, Wergela, Bashar, and Constantine. And they host English language conversation clubs and other fun events. I encourage, if you're located near one of those centers, you should go check them out. In fact, just last weekend, all 5 of the American spaces hosted hundreds of people for regional spelling bees. At our spelling bee in Algiers, I was so impressed with what great spellers these participants are, especially because I'm not a very good speller. But the winners of those 5 spelling bees are actually going to all come to Algiers for a big national spelling bee on January 28th. So stay tuned for more details on that. And now for today's show. So you guys might know that Thursday is Thanksgiving in America. And I bet if you asked a lot of Americans what their favorite holiday is, many of them would say Thanksgiving. It is a non-religious holiday that's centered around families gathering together for a big meal with traditional food like turkey, potatoes, green beans, corn, and pumpkin pie. We're going to hear a lot more about these foods from our guests, but I also want to tell you a couple other things about Thanksgiving. It's really focused on it's a day to share what we're thankful for. There's also a huge parade in New York City. It's actually the world's largest parade. And there's football games on Thanksgiving. That's American football, not soccer. Football is shown on TV, but also sometimes people go outside and throw a football around after they finish their meal. It's also a custom to give to charity on Thanksgiving. So a little bit of history about Thanksgiving. The first Thanksgiving was thought to be celebrated in 1621, which is back when the U.S. was still a British colony. The first Thanksgiving was celebrated by the Pilgrims, who are the English settlers who came to North America on a ship called the Mayflower. So the Pilgrims celebrated Thanksgiving, the first Thanksgiving, along with Native Americans. And that feast lasted 3 days, and the point of it was to commemorate the first harvest in their new home. But we're going to hear more about how Thanksgiving is celebrated today. We have 4 special guests from different regions in the U.S., and they're going to share with us the specific ways that people in their region celebrate Thanksgiving. So we have Julie from my region, which is called the Midwest. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Nice to have you.
Oh, yes. Thank you for having me.
We have Michelle from a region called the Southwest. Hey, Michelle.
Hello.
Nice to have you. And we have Beth from the South. Hey, Beth.
Hi, Emily. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. And we have also one more special guest who's going to join us a little bit later. But first, we're going to hear from Julie. Allow me to tell you a bit about Julie. Julie Mack is from Michigan, where I'm from. She's lived there most of her life. She's a retired journalist. She's married with 3 grown children, and she and her husband have been hosting Thanksgiving for extended family for more than 25 years. Julie, I understand you'll be hosting Thanksgiving tomorrow for 15 people, including your kids, sisters, brothers-in-law, nieces and nephews, and even your ex-husband and his wife.
That is true. That is true.
Are you ready? Are you ready for the celebration
Pretty
tomorrow?
much. I was cleaning last night. I've been cooking for a couple of days. We just need to we're going to start having people arriving. My children are coming home today, and as well as my sister-in-law and brother-in-law from Iowa. So are coming. So
you have people coming from even out of state to come to your
yes.
home.
That's unusual. That just happened to be coincidence this year. Normally it is people who are just driving in for the day. So, but it is.
Could you tell us about what you do on Thanksgiving Day? What are some traditions that you've celebrated for these 25 years that you've been hosting Thanksgiving?
Well, I certainly, so for one thing, the food, the meal, the big thing for Thanksgiving, the centerpiece is having a big meal midday, and we will be having turkey. And in the Midwest, a big thing is what we call stuffing, which is essentially dried bread and you put it inside the cavity. You get a really big turkey, mine is 22 pounds. And you put that bread inside the turkey so the drippings from the meat flavor the bread. And it sort of makes, it's really, I love stuffing. It's really delicious. You put some spices in it too, some celery and some onions. Different people do different things. That's a big debate about what you put in the stuffing. It's called different things in other parts of the country, but so stuffing is a big thing. We have mashed potatoes. We have sweet potatoes. We have, in the Midwest, it's very big to have something called green bean casserole, which is actually green beans, and it's mixed with a mushroom sauce, and a special kind of onion is put on top. It's like a really a fried, crispy onion put on top. And that's most people in the Midwest have that casserole. Often people will make a
Thanksgiving dish, Julie. Sorry to interrupt. As a girl from Michigan, the green bean casserole for me is where it's at. It's my favorite.
Green bean, you could not really have Thanksgiving. My children laugh about it because it's so Midwest, but another Midwest dish that I don't have, but many people do, is called ambrosia, which is like the most Midwestern thing ever, in that it's mini marshmallows mixed with bits of fruit and sort of Marcito cherries, which are like the sort of artificially sweetened cherries, super sweet cherries, and you mix it with a whipped cream or sour cream. I mean, different people do different things. It's the super sweet, icky sweet salad. And sometimes people put in even like green pudding mix, a pistachio pudding mix. But that is a very popular dish in many households.
Yeah, I think that for our Algerian audience, a salad that is actually sweet is a very weird concept. But
it is actually, if you saw it, it is a very weird concept. I mean, you have to, I don't personally like it, but there are lots of people who do. We also have something called cranberries, and cranberries are actually grown in Michigan, so most people do have cranberries. Cranberries are a very sour, tart berry. They're small and they're bright red, and you have to mix it with sugar because they're so tart and sour. And I made, so I make like a cranberry chutney, which you can see right here. I don't know if you can see this, but it is basically I boil these berries with sugar and put in chopped apples and oranges and raisins. And it makes sort of a delicious tart, sweet sauce that you can put on the meat, or you can really, actually it's delicious even putting it on well, you don't have crackers there, but breads or other things too. I mean, it's sort of like a relish. It's an accompany thing. And the big thing at our dinners is always the dessert. And it's very...
Can I just interject about cranberries? There's some conversation in the YouTube chat. I asked if our Algerian viewers know cranberries, and they think it sounds familiar, but only because of the band. And so they...
I think the cranberries are from Michigan, aren't they?
I thought the cranberries might be Swedish or something.
Maybe I'm getting them mixed up with. I don't know these younger bands. I'm too old for this stuff. But
so the fruit is the fruit that you talked about is native to North America. So that's why.
Yes, and it is. It probably might have been at the original Thanksgiving because it's native to New England. But I really like cranberries. And then the big thing at our Thanksgiving dinner is the dessert, which is pie. And pie is, you take pastry. Would Algerians know what pastry is?
Dough. You take dough, like kind of a bread type dough.
And you put it in a special pan, and then you can put filling in it. I mean, almost everyone probably has a variation of pie in their culture. And for tomorrow, we have made, I made one with an apple filling and one with a chocolate filling. And then a friend dropped off this. This is called coconut cream pie. You can see, so this is what pie looks like. And it is almost like a pudding, a milk custard that she put coconut in. And another popular one would be one with not coconut but bananas. But there are many kinds. Most people would have pie. That is the traditional Thanksgiving dessert. And another traditional pie, although we're not having it this year, is pumpkin pie. Pumpkin is native to North America, and it's a kind of squash. And you put eggs and sugar and sweeten it up and some spices, and that would be a very common thing. Two other quick things about Thanksgiving in Michigan is the football is huge because it is the team that always plays on Thanksgiving is from Michigan. They always have it in, so that football game that's on Thanksgiving is actually in Michigan every year. So that's a very, very big deal, the Detroit Lions. And then the other thing is that many people view Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, as a big shopping day. It is the first shopping day of Christmas. And so one thing that a lot of people do on Thanksgiving night is you're going through you're planning your shopping for the next day because there's many special deals. It is like, it's considered the biggest sales deal of the year. So that's become a little less with online shopping, but that is still, many people follow. On Thursday you have Thanksgiving, and on Friday you have what we call Black Friday, and where you go shopping. So that is a big tradition.
Yeah, I think probably our viewers have heard of Black Friday since it's pretty much worldwide now.
Oh, is it? Okay, yeah.
We have a comment that just came in from Anissa Yabzag on YouTube who says that they're Algerian, and Algeria is super well known for pastries. They have a million desserts with dough, pie, pastry. So I can confirm there are lots of good pastry pie type things here. Well, Julie, I'll get to you and ask you some more questions about Thanksgiving in Michigan and how you're celebrating, but we're going to go to our guest from El Paso, Texas next. So I'd love to introduce you to Michelle. Let's see, Michelle. Okay, Michelle lives in El Paso, Texas, which for those of you who don't know is on the border between Mexico and New Mexico. She's married with 2 kids. She was also formerly a journalist, and now she works as the communications director for an education public policy organization. Michelle, welcome, and please tell me, what are you doing for Thanksgiving tomorrow? How are you celebrating?
So we're just making a small Thanksgiving. My in-laws were going to come and they were going to do all the cooking, and because they fell ill, they canceled at the last minute and didn't travel here. So now my husband, I was like, you do it. So my husband's doing it. For the most part, we do a very traditional Thanksgiving here in the Southwest or El Paso. We do add some variety, but I would say that the difference in the Southwest might be where your family's from. Like my husband, for example, we live in the Southwest, but he's from Chicago. So there's a lot of Midwest influence, and I don't like that. He likes his meat in his stuffing. I like mine vegetarian or with apples, and that's how I like to have mine. But it might be preference. So we do the same traditional one, especially because there's a lot of Mexicans here in the Southwest. So it's not something that we've been doing for years and years and years, right? It's something that our family started doing when we moved to this area. So we just kind of adopted what we've seen and taken bits and pieces. I'll have family that does a green bean casserole. I'll have some that have never heard of it, right? So it's just kind of what you adopt and maybe find on the internet or slowly do. One thing that we always have though, and this is just a staple of being Mexican. So I don't know that this is necessarily a Southwest thing, but almost, because there's such a huge Hispanic population here, is you always have tortillas. Which is our version of, I don't know what they have in Algiers, what kind of bread is their popular one, but I'm sure they're familiar with naan. So this is a flat naan bread, but it's like flat. And it, depending on what part of region of Mexico your family's from, you're going to like it made out of flour or made out of corn. My husband's from central Mexico, so he likes his made out of corn. I like mine made out of flour. And you always make sure you have salsas, right? So you can't just have like a, dry turkey, you have to put salsa on it. Whereas like in the Midwest, they put gravy. My husband, we got married and I made gravy, right? Because again, we adopt things. So he's like, what is this? I was like, it's the gravy. And he's like, no, we just put salsa. We do both, right?
To
So
explain to our viewers, I think salsa is probably not a common concept in Algeria. What is salsa, and how is that important to you being a American with a Mexican heritage?
so salsa is there's variety. There's a green salsa, red salsa, diced, but basically it's based in Chile. So sometimes jalapenos, different kinds of chilies, right? Is how you make it. Green salsas with like a green tomato called tomatillo, and then there's the red one. And so it just depends on the spices that you use is the kind of salsa. But we use salsa for everything. I am a terrible Mexican and I don't like spice that much. So they eat it. It's always there, but I actually don't eat it that much. Unfortunately, I'm like, oh, it burns. But it's very spicy. Basically, so long as you can't taste your food because your mouth is on fire, then it's delicious. It's kind of our standard. And then we have something called
It's a very different regional difference, I have to point
Oh,
out.
I have to say, I've never heard of turkey and salsa on Thanksgiving. That's
yeah, I mean, it just goes with everything, right? You don't, it's funny, like sometimes we don't even use forks because we use the tortilla, right? We just, make a bunch of little tacos. I'm sure tacos are famous everywhere, but you just make tacos with your turkey and then you add the stuffing, the mashed potatoes, whereas maybe somebody would use a biscuit, but we just use tortillas.
Now, let me interject because you guys might not know, but there's a very interesting thing about tacos in Algeria. So
Okay.
here in Algeria and also in Morocco, they have a dish called tacos. It's always plural, Tacos, tacos. And what it is a tortilla, as you described, but it's filled with like bechamel sauce and chicken and like lots of kind of rich ingredients. And then it's put on the griddle. So it's more like a grilled sandwich. And that's what they call tacos here. So even the concept of a Mexican-inspired taco, as you mentioned, is actually something that Algerians might not be familiar with.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so this is like folded in half, and so I mean, basically, we end up making a taco out of everything because we eat with the tortilla. So we just make it into, we fold the bread and we stuff it in there, and then it's a little taco. I will say, so my husband worked at NATO for a few years and we lived in Germany, and we had spouses that had to host every month. A country hosted, and we would bring all our foods from our country, and we would also talk a little bit about our cultures and traditions. Well, the US being a nation of immigrants, we don't really have our own. Pizza is Italian, hot dogs. We're not going to bring hot dogs to Germany, like tacos, that's Mexican. So what our thing was every year is we did a Thanksgiving meal, and we taught people about that because it's really the only thing unique to the US that doesn't have a lot of influence from other places around the world. So that was kind of our thing. And that's how special Thanksgiving is. My favorite holiday happens to be Halloween, which is also very American. But my husband's is definitely Thanksgiving. So because he's from a different region than me, he has the ways that he likes it. So I let him do a couple of things, and I'll add my pies, and very traditional. I just buy pie from the store, but people make it. I'm supposed to, I'm just kind of lazy. But yeah, so in the Southwest, you add tortillas, you add salsas, and you add something called chiles curtidos, which is kind of like, how you like put like, what's it called when you put things in vinegar? Like
pickled.
Pickled jalapenos, basically. Pickled jalapenos. And
Yum.
then especially hot salsa, then you take these pickled jalapenos and then you put that on there too. So just very spicy foods. But I love trying all food from all regions because, again, Thanksgiving is something that that our families learned here. I'm first generation American. So we just kind of adopted what we see. And every year we watch the Cowboys play because they're from Dallas, Texas, because they play every Thanksgiving as well. So a lot of the football rivalries.
Michelle, can I ask you, you said you're first generation, so your parents were born in Mexico, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And when did they start celebrating Thanksgiving? I'm sure they didn't celebrate Thanksgiving in Mexico, but how soon after they moved to the United States did they start celebrating Thanksgiving?
A few years after, when my grandma, who moved over here, married an American. But even then, Mexicans, people who don't have that influence, aren't married to like an American or white person, if you will, they, just do it because you have the time off and you see everybody buying the turkey. So you buy the turkey and you do the things. And that's what I'm saying. You like adopt what you're seeing, what we see on TV. And it's very, it's almost copying what we're seeing. I would say our Christmas meal is very traditional because it's something we celebrate back home. And that's also a little bit regional as well. But the Thanksgiving one is just kind of what we see. They give us the time off. Kids don't have school. We're here. So we're like, okay, let's make this turkey. And we just follow directions from the internet or from somebody that passed it down to us.
My best friend when I was growing up was from India, and they would make tandoori turkey for Thanksgiving.
Sounds delicious. So afterwards, we do use everybody makes turkey sandwiches, turkey, whatever you do with the after food. We make mole, which is a spicy, it's made out of spices and chocolate. And we make the turkey with that because in Mexico, you usually make the mole with turkey, not chicken. And so then we start making fajitas. We make all the Mexican dishes with the turkey. The days.
For our viewers, you buy a big turkey. We're not talking that you just buy like a little cutlet of turkey or something. It's a huge, huge, huge turkey that you get from your butcher or you get from the grocery store. So there's usually a lot of leftovers. Okay, we're going to hear more about this. Get back to these delicious leftover videos in a bit, but I'd love to introduce you to our third guest, Beth Potter, who, like me, is married to a U.S. diplomat. So she moves to a new country every few years. Currently, she lives with her husband and 2 daughters in Benin, in West Africa. She is from the U.S. state of Georgia. And I say state of Georgia because she's not from the country of Georgia. She's from the U.S. state of Georgia, which is considered in the American South. So she's from the South. She grew up in a big extended family who ate lunch together every Sunday afternoon. So it was almost like Thanksgiving every Sunday. And she loves Southern cooking, which she's going to tell you more about what that means. But first, Beth, how are you going to celebrate Thanksgiving tomorrow? I know you're not in Georgia, you're in West Africa. What will your celebration look like?
So our celebration this year will be a little different because it's going to be hot outside. It's like 95 degrees here every day, all year. So it's going to be hot.
Viewers,
that will be
about 40 degrees. It's hot.
Yes. Yes, so we are going to do a little something, a little untraditional, I guess, with, we're doing chicken and steak tomorrow because procuring a turkey here is not always super easy to do. So we have found a place and we can get one, and we're going to do that at Christmas. So for tomorrow, we're going to have a little different meat selection, but we're going to have the traditional, holiday sides. So everyone's looking forward to that. And when I say everyone, I mean me mostly. And it's weird because growing up, like I did with my grandmother and all of her sisters making Thanksgiving, it's different now that I have to be the one that's cooking. So I'm doing my best, making the things that were a part of my childhood. But, it's never quite as good when you make it yourself, I think. But I do try my best.
What's on every Thanksgiving table in the South?
So I'm going to share my screen because I feel like that's going to be a better way for me to show everyone. So these are on pretty much every Southern table at Thanksgiving. These are called collard greens.
Beth, I can
part of the cabbage.
See all of the pictures, but I can't see the individual picture.
Oh, it should get there. I'm so sorry about my internet. I had my fingers crossed.
No problem. We can relate to not having the best internet here in Algeria too.
Yeah. I hope it shows up, but the first photo is collard greens. and they are part of the cabbage family. And collard greens are very bitter. So in the South, we cook them with pork. You can see the pieces of ham inside the collards, and you definitely have to add a little bit of sugar, and the pork adds all the salt that you're gonna need. But yeah, that does help that.
So collard greens, sorry, the sharing wasn't really working. So if you can just paint us the mental image of the food.
Just talk. Yeah, okay.
We got collard greens, what else?
I'm gonna look if that's okay. Let me think. We have, instead of stuffing, I know Julie mentioned stuffing. In the South, we do cornbread dressing. It's called dressin'. At my house, it was called dressin' with no G. And it is, at my house, it was always vegetarian. So you make a pan of cornbread. There's cornbread in different ways all over the world. So you take cornbread and then you tear it all apart, and you make toast with bread, and you tear all that apart, and you put it in a pan, and you cover it with like chicken broth and celery and onion and things like that, and you put it in the oven, and it comes out kind of like a cake. It's dense, but it's very juicy. I don't know any other way. With all the broth in there, it's really moist. We also do something called sweet potato souffle. And that's where you boil sweet potatoes, and then you basically puree them, and you put pecans on the top. And a lot of people put little marshmallows on there, and you bake it in the oven. We also always have deviled eggs, always. And
what are deviled eggs?
Sweet tea. So deviled eggs are boiled eggs that you cut in half, long ways down the egg, and you take out the yolk that is completely cooked, and the white part, the egg white, is like a little boat, and you put the yolk mixed with mayonnaise and dill or pickles and a little bit of yellow mustard, and you mix all of that up and put it inside the egg. And then those are a huge hit. So the crazy thing that we have, like Julie was talking about ambrosia salad, the crazy thing in the South that we put out, or older generations always put out, that I never tried, is something called pear salad. Again,
okay, sounds good. What is it?
It's called a salad, but not really. It's a pear half, cut in totally in the middle, so that the seed part, there's like a little indent in the pear half, and you put a dollop of mayonnaise. Then you sprinkle shredded cheddar cheese on top, and then you put a maraschino cherry cut in half on top of that. So that is the doozy that is on every older generation Southern Thanksgiving table for sure.
So it sounds like there's some things that you put on a Thanksgiving table that maybe people don't even like, that are kind of weird and maybe outdated a bit, but you just do it because of tradition. Is that your experience?
Definitely. Yes. And, you know, sometimes in the South, when you have really big families, you have like 2 or 3 versions of a dish, depending on which family members are going to be, you know, at the event. And so for desserts, you know, particularly we do pumpkin usually, but like pecan pie is a huge thing in the South. Pecans are a nut that grow in the South, and so we put those on everything basically. They're kind of like candy. but then, you know, there's cobblers on a Thanksgiving table in the South, and cobbler is kind of like a cakey, and it's full of fruit and all the juices and everything. So, and then you put ice cream on top of that even. So that was always a favorite at my house. And I will say, in my family, when we finished all of Thanksgiving and, you know, everyone watched the Cowboys or the Lions play football and all of that good stuff. We weren't fans of the Cowboys or the Lions. The poor Falcons, though, just the poor Falcons. We would go to the movies. That was a big thing for our family. A lot of people would, you know, get together and we would pick. And if no one could decide, we went in different theaters, and then we just met up afterward and, you know, would go home and have more dessert. So that was always something that we looked forward to as cousins and, you know, being together as a family. So that trip to the movies was always fun.
Thank you guys for sharing all this. That was mostly about food. Almost all of it sounds delicious. Some of it less delicious. But if I could, you know, Thanksgiving is a holiday that, while it's so focused on food, it's one of our really biggest like eating days of the year in America. Everyone in America has a huge meal on that day. But maybe some non-food aspects of Thanksgiving that are special to you, if you could share, if we could go through, starting with Julie, what is a very important thing about Thanksgiving to you?
I mean, really the getting together with family. This is probably the one time that I really host my family at my house each year. Usually we get together in other places or other venues. So that, and I think also too, this was something that I did when I was younger, is there's also a tradition in recent years called Friendsgiving, where if you live in a place where you don't have family around, or even if you do, many times people will get together with friends outside of even Thanksgiving Day and have a big special meal with friends, and they'll call it Friendsgiving. And for about 10 years, I lived out on the East Coast, away from my family, and I could not come home for Thanksgiving. And we would have a big Thanksgiving. It was I worked for a newspaper, and the newspaper staff would have a big potluck dinner. So I think that was something that was really nice. And the other aspect of it too is, and I don't know I'm guessing this is true in the South and the Southwest, but it is a potluck. People are usually, it's not just one person cooking all the food. Families traditionally, if you're getting together with other people, everybody's contributing special dishes that they make. And so that's really fun too, to see what other people make. And just that ability to spend time together, I think is a big thing. And one thing tradition we do in our house is that someone mentioned going to the movies, is that in our place after dinner we all go for we have a neighborhood that's nice for walking, and we go for a walk after Thanksgiving and walk off some of that big heavy food, and before we dive back and to have another round of eating. So
that's what we do in my family too. So maybe it's a Michigan thing to do a walk after Thanksgiving. Yeah. Michelle, what's your favorite part of Thanksgiving? Why do you love Thanksgiving?
I think just the opportunity to get together. You know, sometimes we say grace, sometimes we don't, just depending. It's just an opportunity to get together. Something that my husband's family does, and they're Mexican as well, Mexican American, is they have Thanksgiving so early. Like I'm talking like at 2 or 3, right? Because they wake up and they're like, we need to start cooking. And so, which for me, I'm like, hey, it's dinner, guys. But anyway, they have it at 2. Then they have something called the recalentado, which that's in Spanish. In English, it would be called the reheat. And then you eat dinner again at like 7. So it's a big thing. Like you have to make space for oh, I'm just going to chill, not eat so much because I'm going to eat this again, you know, later this evening. So that's really common. And lots of people do it. My mom and I, we would just like be late and take forever and have it at dinner. But you know, then you walk around the mall, and that's when you walk off the food, because in the Southwest, we're puny about the cold. Like, oh no, I cannot be outside. It's like 60 degrees, which I don't know what that is. I can't remember what that's Celsius, but it's not that cold, but we don't like anything below 70. So we go to the malls. They open at midnight. Some people camp out to go do their shopping. So you get to go and maybe you do shopping, but at least you get to walk around and walk off some of that now your stuff like the turkey.
Yeah, exactly. So Michelle made a good point. Thanksgiving it's usually cold during Thanksgiving, depending on where you're from. But where I'm from and where Julie's from in Michigan, it's always cold for Thanksgiving. So what you wear for Thanksgiving is like what I'm wearing right now. This would be our traditional Thanksgiving dress in Michigan, which is a cozy sweater. Beth, can I go to you and ask you, what is your favorite thing about Thanksgiving?
I would have to say that it's just the traditions that you make with your family and then that you build on your own with your own smaller groups. For me, living the life that we do overseas, I think it's important for my children to still have some of the things that I always looked forward to and keep just building on the traditions that that are important in our lives, that center around our family, which is very, very important. And the interesting thing about living abroad like this is the fact that we do, in the same Thanksgiving, have a Midwest dish, a Southern dish. We have, all the different dishes at the same Thanksgiving table. And, it's a wonderful opportunity for us to share all of those things. And then you think, next year, oh my gosh, we should totally look up that mole recipe so that we can have, something totally different. So I think the tradition part of it is a super, important piece.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And we're going to talk a bit more about tradition and specifically the tradition of giving thanks because it's called Thanksgiving. But I want to introduce our viewers to our special guest.
Emily, I think you muted yourself.
That was all on mute.
Yes.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry.
You told me sooner. Okay, I'm going to do that again.
I thought it was my internet.
For speaking silently for all that time. What I was doing there when you couldn't hear was introducing you to our next speaker as my cat walks in front of the screen. So our next speaker is Narges Laykal Ayat, who's an Arabic instructor who lives in Washington, D.C. Narges immigrated to America 24 years ago from Algeria, where she was born and raised. She actually worked as an English teacher in Algiers before she moved to the U.S. I thought it would be fun to have an Algerian American on to tell us how she celebrates Thanksgiving in the U.S. So Narges, welcome.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you for having me on your platform. I was just on another show right now. We just finished.
You're multitasking. So how are you celebrating Thanksgiving tomorrow?
Okay, this year is a little bit different. Usually I travel to North Carolina. That's where I have my family. That is my mom and my sister living there. But this year I decided not to drive and I decided just to stay home and chill. However, last year it was different. Last year we celebrated it in family. And instead of getting the turkey, we wanted to do something different. And we had missed very much the very popular bouzalouf in Algeria. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I usually buy that from the Washington, D.C. area because where my sister lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, they do not have these kind of products. So I buy it here fresh from my halal grocery store nearby, and I put everything in a cooler and I drive there so we can celebrate together. And that's what I did last year.
You made
This year is been
You didn't make a turkey, you didn't make the pumpkin pie, you made an Algerian dish.
an Algerian dish, but the years before we've done the turkey. So I purchased my turkey from my halal company nearby. It is a fresh turkey and not a frozen one. And it comes straight from a farm. So it has kind of a better taste than the turkey I will get from my nearby Safeway or Giant store. And we actually bake it in the oven. We just put some very different ingredients, spices, and we still do it the American way with a little splash of the Algerian way.
So the American way with a little Algerian flavor.
Algerian flavor.
And Narges, how soon after you moved to the United States, I know you've lived in the US for 24 years, how soon after you moved to the United States did you begin celebrating Thanksgiving?
Right away, as a matter of fact. The first year I was here, I remember I got here in September. In November, there was a group of friends of mine who had family in the area of Detroit, invited me to take a trip with them. So we went all there. We got turkey, we got lamb, we got chicken, different types of food, and everyone had whatever they wished for. And I celebrated there with my parents at the time.
And do you enjoy the holiday of Thanksgiving?
It is a very special time of the year. A lot of people get together. People are, let's put it this way, nicer and kinder than usual time. And what I like about the Washington, D.C. area in particular, a lot of schools do field trips and take their children to see the very popular turkey at the White House.
Someone was asking about this in the YouTube chat. Could you explain what is the deal with the president and the turkey?
It's a very, first of all, the turkey is big, it's cute, it's white. It is not very different than the lamb or the haroof of a president of any Arab country. It is a special one. It is a prestigious one. But to see all kids from school going on field trips to go see that particular turkey, some kids get to greet the president during that occasion, and that is just a wonderful opportunity for kids.
And then what does the president do with the turkey?
I heard that this particular year, the turkey has been donated.
Yeah,
I don't know.
President, it's a tradition in America that the president pardons or says this turkey is not going to die this year. And
that's what
this big, beautiful turkey that we all probably saw on TV, and they send that turkey to live out the rest of its life, and they don't kill it that year.
That's exactly what they're talking about.
So a couple questions from the YouTube chat. And guys, if you have any questions for Julie, Beth, Michelle, or Narges, or just general questions about Thanksgiving, please ask them in the YouTube chat. I want to acknowledge one question. Dean Drizzy said that he's heard that Native Americans don't like Thanksgiving. What is this about? So maybe we can talk about that a little bit. So Thanksgiving is a somewhat controversial holiday. It's true. Why Americans really love to celebrate this holiday. It's controversial because it celebrates the first European settlers who came to the US. Who was living in the US when the settlers came? Native Americans were living there. So this changed everything for Native Americans. So it might be true that Native Americans don't celebrate or don't like Thanksgiving. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in on the history of it. Maybe we could also kind of talk about celebrating a holiday that is both lovely in many aspects, but is both controversial, and maybe how you think about that, if anyone wants to.
What's not controversial is the idea of gratitude and stuff, but the Pilgrim origin story is problematic for a lot of Native Americans, because American history sometimes, for many generations, tended to paint the idea that America started when Europeans moved in, and that really and not even pretend that there were people here before that. And so I think that that's one reason Native Americans, there's some insulting aspects of the Pilgrim story for it, because the focus is on the Pilgrims, but the people providing the food probably in real life are the Indians, and they are the ones who taught the Pilgrims how to grow the food. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the controversy, and it's sort of understandable why, if you were American Indian, you would the Pilgrim story would be sort of grating to you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to comment on that?
Yeah, I know there's certain Native tribes. I don't know, I forget which ones, but they actually call it Day of Mourning. So they don't celebrate it at all. In my family, again, because we're immigrants, we don't even focus on that part or talk about it. It's literally just an opportunity to come together because it's a holiday in a country, so we have the time off. So we just get together. But I do have a young daughter, and she's bringing home, the turkey and the painted stuff, like the arts and crafts that you do to celebrate. So far, I haven't seen any Pilgrim stuff, so I don't know how they're teaching it to her, but I do have some concerns about what they might be teaching, something that's false, because as a young kid, I was taught, oh, they came. In fact, I remember my teacher saying, they came and saved, which I thought was just such an interesting word, and I didn't question it. And my family being from Mexico, we're, very Native, right? My great grandma is an actual Mexican Native, Tarahumara. So I had these questions and concerns, but I never really, I got to think them through. And now that, I think we're a little more conscious of things. And so if you can just focus on the getting together portion of it. And even the foods, right, that we have are foods that were native to the natives, and people don't really think about this, right? This corn they gave us, it's thanks to the natives, and we don't think of it that way either. We just kind of put our own spice and make it American, and almost erase the native memory of that, I think, sometimes.
I'll echo what Michelle just has said. Where I live here in Falls Church, Virginia area, it is very cosmopolitan, and it's a very diverse area. So I had the chance to spend a few Thanksgiving with different communities here in the area. For example, I had the chance to spend a Thanksgiving with a Bolivian family, along with my son, because my son is half Bolivian as well. And it's all about being together. It's all about being with the family. Now, the way the turkey is cooked, whether it's fried or it's baked, this is not the most important thing for this particular holiday, but it's the concept of the family being together and sharing with others.
And also the concept of giving thanks, which maybe we just have a couple more minutes, so maybe we can wrap up on that. The holiday is called Thanksgiving. A tradition that I actually didn't grow up doing, but I do it now for every Thanksgiving, is that I go around the table and ask everyone what they were thankful for the previous year. And we all just listen and go around. And I think that's a nice exercise. I'm curious, do you guys actually do this? Does anyone go around their table and say what they're thankful for?
We Thanksgiving? That's a tradition at our dinner.
Yes.
What I've just heard from my bureau and my coworkers, this year is really particular. We are all going to be saying thank you for overcoming this COVID pandemic. Thank you, because we are alive. We survived. So this is the very important thing to say this year. We are thankful. We are here.
Mm-hmm. Beth, do you want to add anything? Do you guys go around your table and say what you're thankful for?
Yes, we definitely each take a turn, and so when it's their turn, I tell them beforehand, you're going to have to tell everyone what you're thankful for. So please put a little thought into that, and don't say your Legos or, something like that. Put some actual thought into it. And so it's something that you know, I think is good practice for them anyway. We definitely do that. And then we also collect food for food banks and share before Thanksgiving. We get a list of what they may need, and we try to get the things that most people don't donate. And so that they will have something to be thankful for, as you know, for their meal as well. So.
I think that relates a lot to in Algeria and in many Muslim countries, the holiday of Ramadan is huge about charity. That's a really big part, is giving to others. And that's how Thanksgiving is too. It's a time where a lot of people will volunteer to serve food to people who don't have something to eat, and who will donate other things. So I think that's a nice part about Thanksgiving. Okay, guys, well, that's about all the time that we have to talk about Thanksgiving, which is tomorrow, November 25th. I know all of us Americans are really excited to eat this delicious food tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing a bit about this tradition. Please follow us on YouTube so you don't miss other talks like this. We do talks like this most Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Next week, actually, we're going to have a forum on human rights Wednesday at 6 p.m., which should be really interesting. Thank you so much to my guests for being here, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you.